Okay, hello guys, welcome back to another video. And I say another, but it's the end. It's the end of my TV show breakdowns for now. I might do Last of Us Season 2. That's kind of unrelated. That's unrelated. Let's just talk about this video. The Severance Season 2 finale. I mean, did anyone else think Season 2 went by, like, extremely fast? I feel like we were just on Episode 3, like, legitimately. But, I mean, I'm just gonna get right into it. We start the episode, and I actually started the episode, like, literally like the exact second that it was uploaded, because it was 5:59 and the episode comes out at 6, and I hit refresh at 5:59, and then like the second I hit refresh it turned 6 and the video came up, or the episode. So I think it was a little funny, but anyways, we start with the intro, which threw me off guard. I don't think they've ever done that where they start the episode with the intro, but yeah, we start with the intro just so we can get to the rest of the stuff like right away, so we can just get right into it, keep it going. But after that, we go to Cobell, who asks Mark if he has finished Cold Harbor yet. Cobell mentions the exports hall, the hallway, and Mark says that it's in Irving's drawings. And then we go to James Egan, who has encountered Helly in MDR, and he says he threw a tin of candies after Helly's speech last finale, which I guess that's a lot for him. But then he like slowly walks up to her and he says, "I do not love my daughter." Like, okay. But he says he used to see cure in her. He doesn't anymore. And he sired others in the shadows, but there was no cure in them either. And then he says, "I saw him again in you," talking to Helly. And then he just leaves. I mean, Helly kind of like gets up out of her chair with her pen, and then he just kind of dips. But then we get a great transition to Mark's head after Helly's head, and you can already feel the tension building. You can already tell they're making a crazy episode. But Cobell explains that once he finishes Cold Harbor, they're going to do a test, and then they're going to kill her. So Mark needs to get to the testing floor as soon as possible after finishing the file, because they will need to get Gemma out of safety, and then Cobell warns him that his chip's only attuned to his floor, so it will not be him if he goes down the elevator. And I think it's definitely kind of what I thought would happen. I was wondering if he'd go down there and he'd just be like a fresh innie. But since he's not attuned to it like Gemma is, he'd just be his outie, which is cool. But then she says you are going to be switching between your innie and your outie, trying to rescue her, and you need to guide her out of the building. And I mean, they want to get Gemma free, but another positive is they kind of want to end Lumen to kind of prove that they kidnapped Gemma and that she's still alive. But then Mark realizes through this, or innie Mark, that all innies would die. And then he goes to talk to himself by going in and outside the innie and outie barrier with a camera and talking to each other. And then there's this fireplace with these two people next to the fire. It was in the background a little bit, but then they showed it for a little frame here. And let me know you think this could be. Maybe it's Kieran Imogene. I don't know. It doesn't really look like Kieran. Maybe it's his brother. I don't know. Maybe it's Mr. Drummond. Maybe. No? I'm not sure. You guys can let me know. But then we get a great sequence of Mark suddenly being outside with a new message from his other self. And then the camera pans out. I think that was really cool. And it's definitely, it makes sense, but it is cool attention to detail. Like how quick Mark knows how like the camera works and how to flip it. Or outie Mark compared to innie Mark. They visually show that, which obviously makes sense. But it's great attention to detail. And I love that this sequence had empty chairs on the other side of them. There was just empty chairs on both sides, which is great. And they start to argue about who would live the life, who would get more of the life if they were to reintegrate. And then Mark starts to get real and honest about Gemma and how he, wants to see her, his experience after her death, supposed death. And I wanted them to talk about Petey here. Like, they both saw Petey. They got some common ground there. They could have connected over that, but they didn't. But innie Mark wants Helly. he doesn't want to leave Helly. He wants to be with Helly, but Outie Mark wants to do the same with Gemma. So obviously the conflict here, the conflict they've been building up to this whole season and kind of been setting up. It's been setting up and been present at the same time. But Cobell was like, okay, I've had enough. I want to speak to Mark myself. And she sits Mark down and says, the numbers are your wife. They are a doorway into Gemma's mind. And then she asks, what do you see when you look at them? And he says he feels things. And then we kind of get a sequence here where we get I don't know if you noticed, but the background music, the score, was the same as the Waffle Party in episode 8 of last season, but changed a little bit, like a little bit of a remix.
Whoa.
But it does this, and then it shows the tempers from the Waffle Party, as well as Cobell's face in the numbers. And she says the numbers are Gemma's tempers. Every file completed is a new consciousness, a new any consciousness you are making, as we saw with the rooms. And we get the reveal here that it's 24 that he's completed. He's made 24 innies, and the Cold Harbor is the last. And then she tells him tomorrow will be your final day at Lumen, Mark. And kind of basically alluding to you will be killed. It doesn't matter if you want to live with Helly. It doesn't matter if you care about staying with Helly and want to live. It won't matter because tomorrow is your last day anyways. So this kind of convinces him to go through with this. But then Mark asks what she's doing here and why she's helping them. And she says this.
Mark.
And she says there's no honeymoon ending. And then he's like, okay, I'm getting out of here. He goes downstairs. He runs past Devin. And I just realized we didn't get much Devin this episode. But he leaves. And right before he does, Cobell says, wait, I care for you. Which, we know this. We know that she's weirdly cares for Mark. But why? And this is the first time she said it. She's shown it. This is the first time she said it, that I care for you. And, I mean, there is theories that she's his mother. I mean, maybe. But, I mean, the age is a little close. But, I mean, there's got to be some sort of relationship we don't know about, or some sort of relation to Mark. Obviously, she cares for him, or maybe she just developed a care for him working with him. I don't know. Then we go right to Mark. No time wasted. Mark going to the severed floor and seeing a new painting of Gemma on it. The goat guy in disguise from season 2, episode 3. Rickon's here. That ghost lady from episode 4 of this season. They're all in this picture, and the other MDR group from episode 1 of this season, the Egans at the top, and even Petey showed up. That's pretty cool. But then Helly shows up from the elevator right after, and I'm just now realizing that we didn't really know what happened in the outie world between them. Like, how did Mark decide to go to the elevator, and how did Helena decide to go right after him? Did they, like, talk on the outside? Maybe they'll reveal that in season 3, or maybe they didn't talk at all, and it's just coincidence that Helena showed up right after him. And then we get this nice frame here of Mark and Helly, with Mark right in between them. In the painting, I think it's great symbolism of his state right now on pretty much any Mark choosing between Outie Mark and Helly is pretty much what he's doing. Same with like Gemma or Helly. The division right there is there in this frame. Every frame in the show is very intentional, and that's something very cool about the show. But then the lights shut off and they start to guide them down the hall to MDR. I think it's MDR when they get there. I mean, it is MDR. I'm 99% sure. But they get there with the wax version of Kier there with an envelope to Mark S. And I still think it's kind of strange Helly just appeared. I don't know, she just appeared for plot here. But anyways, Mark the founder, this is the letter. Mark the founder wished to witness the completion as well as Heliar from her chair. Love, Milchek. From her chair? Only from her chair? Okay, so that makes a little more sense. I'm sorry, why Helly's here. But I'm still curious what Helena was thinking right before she did this. But then he opens the card and there's a nice waffle. Yeah. And then the computer turns on by itself for him to do Cold Harbor. And it makes the same sound that it did season 1. I think it was also season 1, episode 8, where Helly completes her quota for the quarter. And there's a little bit of a preemptive celebration here. You know, they've put up a painting, they've done all this. He hasn't even completed Cold Harbor yet. He's at 96%. Maybe it's just more of an incentive to complete, but it's a little preemptive celebration. It could cause for some bad luck, and maybe that's what happened. Because I don't think Lumen got very lucky this episode. But Dylan, we go to Dylan, who appears out of the elevator and is greeted by Milchek. And then here we see really quick that MDR is now named the Exalted Victory of Cold Harbor. It's no longer MDR, which makes sense. They're no longer doing data refinement. So I wonder what their jobs would be. I mean, wait, they said they're gonna get rid of them. Never mind. But then we see Gemma, who's picking out clothes. Or, you know, her clothes are picked out for her every day. That's what I mean. And they gave her the clothes that she wore on the day of her accident this time. And then obviously there's still a lot of questions we don't know, like why they chose Gemma, how she survived, and a lot more I was thinking about earlier, but I just don't remember right now. But they're going to extract Gemma's chip. But Helly and Mark talk while he starts working on his file for Cold Harbor. They share info. They get kind of real. They get real talking to each other about their situations, and the lighting here in this scene is definitely so interesting. This show's incredibly interesting with its camera or its cinematography decisions. But then Milchek goes to Dylan. He is with Dylan. He gives him his Audi's response, and then Milchek sprints the hell out of there. That's actually really funny. But Dylan reads his response, which says F you, and then I get it. My wife's pretty cool. And then thanks to you, I'm gonna try and be harder to be more like you. And then he gives Dylan a choice to stay or leave, and we don't know the decision, but it looked like Dylan was leaning towards staying now, maybe. But then we go to Helly, who mentions their first day meeting, Mark and Helly's first day meeting, where she answered Delaware as a state when he questioned her. And she says she's been thinking about more places than Delaware. And they talk about knowing the word the equator, but not what it means, which is, we all know what it means. But Helly grabs the directions to the exports hall and sneaks them to him as he completes Cold Harbor 100%. Then the lights go out as synth plays while green lights come in. And then Kier freaking moves and says Mark is one of the most important people in history. And then the light flashes, the spotlight goes to Milchek as floor manager, who shows up a little late. But this is so freaking weird. It's like a game show or something now. I don't know, award show, but it's funny. And then they had like the audience sounds. But then somehow Kier's like talking to them. I think that might have been the weirdest part about the episode, is that it's Kier's voice. And as we saw in the Perpetuity Wing, is that Kier had a recording under his statue. But now he's no longer just being a recording. It could obviously be someone like talking through his statue, but we're under the assumption that that is Kier in his voice. So I don't know, but they're talking and Milchek's like, yay, this is a momentous day. And then Kier roasts Milchek for using big words. Even Kier did it. And then Milchek roasts Wax Kier for his height. And then the choreography and merriment are introduced as Milchek walks away like this. I don't know, that face is horrifying. He walks away as it's basically a marching band, but he walks away with this face, which will forever be in my nightmares. Maybe not, hopefully not. But here I was like kind of starting to panic. I was like, guys, we're supposed to get to Gemma ASAP. Let's hurry this up. But the band, I think it's interesting that the band plays the Kier hymn. It's called the Kier hymn, which Cobell sung in the last season, episode 6. Pretty sure, 90% sure. But this like performance thing ends with Mark 100%, and they show it to like a bird's eye view, even though no one else could tell what it is but us, I guess. But then we go to James Egan, who goes down an elevator, opening to a single room with a computer and a frame of Kier. And then Dr. Maurer says the efficacy test will begin shortly. And then we go back to Milchek, who is moving and grooving right here. And then Helly steals Milchek's walkie to distract from Mark, while Mark gets out of there while the band continues. And poor Milchek, he was just vibing. He was just vibing, then he got closed into a bathroom. Which, this reminds me of last time he wanted a music dance experience. He got bit. And then he's getting all this crap about his words too. He's just trying the best he can. He's working with some crazy people, okay? Let's give him a little bit of a break. But then Mr. Drummond comes up from the exports hall, and I was like, oh shoot, he's coming up while Mark's going there. And then he looks both ways down the hall before smashing down a place in the wall. It wasn't smashing. That's too much of an aggressive verb. It looked like smashing to me. I was like, did he just break the wall? But no. It's like separating doors. We're fine. He didn't smash anything. But then we see the testing floor where Gemma is brought to the room labeled Cold Harbor. And then Gwendolyn Christie. I just know the actress's name, the goat lady. I probably have it written down somewhere, but I don't feel like doing it. Gwendolyn Christie, the goat lady, shows up with a goat in her cart. And then we go to Helly, who tries to lock Milchek in and kind of is about to like lose when Dylan comes in with the vending machine, which clutch Dylan. Let's go Dylan. That's a great moment. And then we see Cecily, the assistant doctor lady for Gemma, use her hand to get Gemma into the room once again, and you can see all the previously made blood pricks on her fingers as she lets Gemma in, which is, you know, that's a little unfortunate for her. I don't think I care. But Gemma is told to enter the room by Dr. Maurer, and she does and sees a crib. And then Jamie Egan's also watching from his own personal watching station. And then Gwendolyn Christie, the goat lady, goes to the area with the wall where Mr. Drummond just went into to deliver it. And Mr. Drummond raises his hand like this and presses a button to shut the doors. Didn't have to be that fancy. Then he says, this beast will be entombed with a cherished woman whose spirit must be guided to Kier's door. And then he grabs a single gun and says, give me its life. So, I mean, there's actually a few goat things here, especially even in the after credits. Might be like the most like revealing thing about the goat. But we can talk about what this could mean. The beast will be entombed. They call it a beast. It's just a goat. Will be entombed with a woman whose spirit must be guided to Kier's door. I mean, must be guided to Kier's door. I mean, are they trying to like? I don't know. Are they trying to use the severance procedure on animals, seeing how that would work? And if animals can be guided to Kier with a woman consciousness, is that maybe it is related to Gemma when they say a woman consciousness in a goat, but the goat would be dead. So how would the goat be entombed, or the woman's spirit would be entombed? Wait, so they would have put her spirit into the goat and then killed the goat? Wait, killed the goat first and then put her dead spirit into the goat. I don't know. But after this, we go to Gemma, where they play the same song in that room that her and Mark liked. And meanwhile, Milkcheck is getting aggressive. He's getting aggressive with that door. And then we see the goat again. This image that we will see again in the credits, but the credits has a little more of someone. It looks like someone severing their head. And when it is a little more animated in the after credits, I think it's more clearly supposed to be a person, even though it doesn't look like a person that much. But like holding their head, and then like the person on the right doesn't have a full head, but there's a goat like being worshipped in the middle. I'd love to hear theories about this for sure. But then Mark finds the exports hall, but he needs higher clearances of a card. He's got the blue card. And then the goat lady says, "How many more must I give?" Mr. Drummond says, "As many as the founder calls." And so, I mean, how do they know what the founder calls? I'm guessing the founder is Kier, who they're talking about. I feel like they've called them the founder before. I'm sorry, I've just read a lot of Silo recently, and they call them the founders, and I get a little confused if I'm remembering. Because I've heard that many times, and I don't know if that's from Silo or Severance. I'm sorry. But, I mean, does this mean... There's been theories of, like, trying to preserve Kier, make him live on through the dead, or, like, live on in time. And if they're saying this is what the founder calls, maybe somehow alive somehow, because, you know, obviously how else would you know what he wants, unless they're just telling her that. But then they hear Mark outside the wall, because he ain't being quiet, he's kicking that door. And Mr. Drummond comes out and just punches him. And it definitely looks scarier than Grainer, because he looks like he could destroy you, Mr. Drummond. But he punches him and starts tossing him around, like he can toss around. But he was like, "Oh, Mark, you're 100%? Okay, I don't care. Get out of here. You're getting killed." But that's kind of crazy. But they fight, and Mark was kind of pissing me off because he kept just trying to crawl away. Like, you can't just crawl your way out of this situation. But Mr. Drummond gets on him and starts to strangle him as Mark's face like loses color. But then Goat Lady comes in with the gun and lets Drummond turn around and knock it down. And then she has to fight him. They go through some brutal combat, and then Mark assists and they destroy him in his face. And Mark stops her from shooting him. Then we go to Gemma, and seeing that she's being tested if she feels anything with the song in the crib. Then back to Mark, who makes Drummond use his key and go into the exports hall. And Mark goes through the elevator, and she's like, basically, I was really worried here, like, oh shoot, he's going through the elevator, he's gonna lose control of the gun, and Drummond's gonna take control of the situation. But the opposite happens, because his gun punctures through Drummond's throat, and Mark's getting blood sprayed all over him. Like, what a way to wake up. And this reminds me of another scene. I was gonna say it, but I can't. I think it'd be a spoiler. But I guess if you happen to know what I'm thinking of, you know. But it's from another similar Apple TV Plus show. But anyways, Drummond's body stays in the door while Mark goes down the testing floor. Meanwhile, we see Helly get a trombone and smack Milkcheck with it. And I still kind of feel bad. But then Milkcheck yells for everyone to go back to their posts. But Helly comes up on top of those desks and makes a speech about Irving being gone and that they will all be turned off like machines. She says they gave us half a life and think we won't fight for it. And then we go back to Mark, who finds Cold Harbor, but Cecilia, I'm gonna give up, is waiting. And Mark shoos her away by pointing the gun at her. It's actually kind of funny scene. She just runs away. And he tries his palm, but it doesn't work. So he tries Drummond's blood on his tie, and it does work. And he goes in and sees Gemma working on the crib. The first time he's gotten to see her. He tries to talk to her, and Dr. Maurer and James Egan see this. But let it happen at first, at least, because they are testing to see if she will break the barrier or not. And they're testing it, And then they start to realize that maybe their barriers aren't so strong. Maybe the power of love can defeat the Severance barriers. But she actually turns out to trust this man who's covered in blood. And James Egan says, "Oh, F." He says the F word. And it's just kind of hilarious hearing him say that, like in his like soft whispered tone. And then he screams the F word, which is actually pretty funny as well. But he gets Gemma to come out of the room, and she is back to her normal self. They do a nice little hug, which is great. But the whole time they're hugging, I was stressed that somebody was going to come in. But luckily they didn't, so that'll be less stressful in rewatches. But the lights go red, and they need to get out of here. And meanwhile, we go to Milchek, who has a chance to look himself in the mirror. And for this part, the pixels were really low. That just happens on my computer whenever there's red. So sorry about that if it looks weird. I think I cleaned it up a little bit more in post, but it still might look weird. But anyways, Mark and Gemma managed to get into the elevator in time, even with Drummond's body. And they kiss right before they switch to Miss Casey and any Mark kissing. And they need to get out of there. I was so stressed in this whole situation, like hitting my armrests on my chair, like go, 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 go. Then Milchek, we go to him slamming into that door with some new anger and dedication as Mark tries to find the way out. Milchek knocks down the vending machine and gets on it while Mark finds the door to the stairwell, which I was really scared they wouldn't find, but I was like so happy they found it. Not got sad. But they pause at the door, sadly. They pause at it. But then we go to Milchek, who has the whole band against him as Dylan makes a stand. He makes a stand by saying, "F you, Mr. Milchek." And then Mark hesitates, leaving with Gemma. He's like, he hesitates. He sends Gemma out, but then he's like gonna push the door, but then his hand comes off of it, and then he's like, wait, maybe not. And then he is literally left in the middle of a hall with Helly on one end of the hall and Gemma on the other. The decision that he has been going toward all season, that is in the intro of the season, is who's he gonna choose? Any Mark, Outie Mark. We know Outie Mark wants Gemma. We know Any Mark wants Helly. But who's Any Mark gonna choose in this situation? Is he gonna benefit his husband, or wait, hold up, his Outie and help his wife, or is he gonna stay and help or do what he wants? And they talk about it in the credits, but I mean, I think I already saw complaining people on Reddit. Maybe was that Reddit? I don't know, but I saw somewhere one comment, I don't remember where it was, where people were complaining that Mark was staying even though he knew he was probably going to get killed or be shut off or whatever. Why would he stay? And they say in the credits that even if it's just for 10 more seconds, he wants to spend those 10 seconds with Helly, even if their future is only 10 seconds. So that's why he stayed. And like, Mark chooses to stay with Helly. And then Windmills of Your Mind plays. He holds hands with her as they leave Gemma on the other side. It's tragic. And we watch them run through the halls as they smile. Then it freezes in a picture and zooms in. It cuts to red and we roll credits. Which I feel like this is just going to be one of those like most remembered scenes of television in this era. I feel like years from now, people are going to be like, oh, you remember that like insane final decision, like the final moment of the finale? Like, because that's what it was all building up to. It reminded me of Lost, the show Lost, when there's like moments of that lead up to one big decision. But there's unique credits with some artwork, some that I mentioned earlier. And I think it's really cool. There's like artwork of the elevator, and as the elevator goes down, the credits go down. We do get some cool designs after the screen goes back to a normal black as well. Some more animated designs. And there's an interesting graphic here, the one I was talking about before with the goat. So it's definitely interesting. It's got the original picture, but like the goat dying and the heads kind of being the same. Let me know what y'all think about that. Maybe it's their way of unsevering people. I don't know. I want to know what the goats are about. But we can talk about the end here. At least it wasn't an insane cliffhanger like last time. We can be happy about that. But it was extremely disappointing that he chose Helly. I don't know if anyone else was like, oh, I'm glad he chose Helly. Let me know, I guess. But I'm definitely wish he would have went out the door with Gemma. But at least Gemma got out. That's another positive. You know, she's no longer on the testing floor. She's not with Mark, but she can get out there, maybe meet up with Devin, tell her story. Hopefully she gets off the premises, you know. But come on, Mark is just planning on dying there. Like even if he's just gonna be with Ellie a little bit, you're gonna die. But we ain't done yet. There's the after credits stuff that I will tell you, only the stuff that is worth of note for the final time of season 2. But they say the finale was their own version of a movie, and it basically is. You know, it was like an hour and 24 minutes with the credits. So almost like a movie, and it was great. And Dan Erickson says since the start of the show, he wanted Mark talking to himself, which we got that scene. That was pretty cool. And then they say any Mark has had his own journey of claiming his own self-importance this season, again leading up to his final decision in the finale. And Dan Erickson mentions the higher level of violence in this episode, but he wanted to make sure it felt earned, and it did, and it felt like insane. He wanted it to feel earned because tensions have been building, and it was let out in violence. It wasn't violence for the sake of violence. It felt earned, but it was kind of insane to me. It was like a little bit shocking. And then they talk about how this could be the beginning of the uprising at Lumen, which is cool. An uprising is cool, I guess, on TV. And then Dan Erickson says he loved that there were 4 different versions of Mark and Gemma in this episode, from like the elevators to the Cold Harbor room to like the stairwell. There's like 4 different versions of Mark and Gemma. It's really cool. And then Ben Stiller says that at the very beginning of the season, they knew that the final moment would be the Innie versus Audi contemplation between Gemma and Helly. And it's really cool to know that they knew that. It makes sense. A lot of the time when you do write these, you do know how it's going to end. And I'm not saying I wrote a show, but I've heard a lot of writers say that. And I when I wrote my book, I had the big things in mind before I even like wrote page 1. But anyways, that's it, guys. But Severance is gone for now. I mean, we had to wait so long, but it seems like it went by so fast. But Silo season 3 is supposed to come out this year, which is exciting. I'll do that. Last of Us season 2 is in 3 weeks, around 3 weeks, and I might do that. I feel like that's more of a show that's just not as deep. It's deep, but it doesn't need as much analysis. I think it's pretty straightforward. But you guys know I don't do like expert analysis here. You know, I'm just kind of here to talk about my interpretation of this piece of art and communicate with you guys about what you enjoyed and what your theories are. And that's what this channel is. There are other videos out there that will give it to you better than I can, with like extreme analysis and attention to detail. I try my best, but I'm not as good as them. So I mean, you can obviously watch those videos. I think you should watch those videos and then mine, because mine will be more of an open space to talk. It'll always be a place to talk and communicate freely, with no judgment or anything. And I appreciate everyone who has left a comment and liked the video and just watched. So thank you guys. This might be it for TV show breakdowns for a while, for a few months maybe, if I don't do Last of Us. So thank you guys. It's been a journey. I came back to it. Okay, you don't need the whole story, I guess, but it's been months. It's been months I've been doing this straight, and I'm grateful that I can, thanks to you guys' support. So thank you, and have a good rest of your day.